In this video, we're going to dissect and help you dissolve one of the biggest fears that stops so many people from building a coaching business, which is getting themselves out there and failing and being judged. And listen to this whole conversation because it really took a powerful and somewhat emotional turn towards the end. One of the phrases that I hear all the time as a reason for sabotage, really, people that don't want to, it's not that they don't want to, but how they're holding themselves back is getting out there. I don't want to put myself out there. I'm afraid to put myself out there. I know I got to get myself out there. And I think there's something really critical about the phrase out there. You know, it makes me think of like you're putting yourself out on a limb, right? And when you put yourself out there, that's where the danger is. That's where the threats are. That's where people might not like you, etc. And I think it'd be really important and helpful to dive into that. You know, what's behind out there? And because people are afraid of putting their stuff out there, they keep everything in here, right? Like, because that's the opposite of out there is in here. And, you know, we talk a lot about how inside the mind is such a dangerous place to be. And that's where so many people's self-abuse is, right? In our community, we talk about it as the self-abuse room. And our message, if you're a speaker, a coach, an author, you have a message that you want to get out there and you want to help people change their lives with, they can't do it while it's in your head. And we all get that conceptually, right? But there's something that stops so many people, even though intellectually and emotionally, maybe they are committed to doing what they need to do to help change people's lives, etc. There's something that stops them. And it's this piece. It's the fear of visibility. I think wrapped into that is a fear of being not good enough. I think there's a fear of being an imposter or being found out as an imposter. And essentially we have this either or commitment, right? You're either committed to your message getting out there and helping people change their lives, or you're committed to keeping your message in here because anything out there is scary. It's potentially dangerous. That's where all of the judgments are. That's where all the approval or disapproval is. And so we've got this situation where so many people with incredibly valuable information keep it in here. And as soon as it's perfect, then they'll let it go out there. And it's only going to happen never. And, you know, one of the things that I think we really need to understand is that if we have a message that we want to get into the world, if we want to make an impact, that message requires oxygen. It has to get out. Not only does it need to get out, obviously, for other people to consume it, but it has to get out for it to evolve. It'll never evolve inside of our head. At least I've never seen it evolve inside of a human head before it gets out into the world and gets feedback, and, you know, people hear it and ask questions about it and judge it and don't like it and love it and all the things that are going to happen when a message gets out of our mind. But so many of us just stay stuck inside of the fear of not being judged. I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, is the fear of being judged. And oh, there's so much to say. The fear of being judged, though, is so often being projected onto, and people are concerned about people that don't matter. Not that people themselves don't matter. Of course, your friends and family matter, but your message is probably not for your friends and family. So why are we concerned that your friends and family are not going to like the message? It's not for your friends and family. And because of that, we're not going to let the message out and get the oxygen for it to evolve for the people that are not your friends and family, that are waiting for the message to evolve, that are waiting for it to hear, for them to hear it, for it to hit their ears and for it to hit their hearts. But we're not going to let it do that because we're concerned about what are the friends and family going to say? What are the people in the front row going to say that we have proximity attachment to because we're closest to them, but they're not who we are assigned to? I get it. I understand. I've done that many times. And we need to detach this fear of judgment from the people that the message is not for. Otherwise, all the people who are waiting for your message, all the people who your message is designed for, the people who are designed for you, the people who are waiting for you will never get it because you're too concerned that the people that the message is designed to go over and reach those folks, you're too concerned that those people are going to judge the message as it goes over their head. Go ahead.
You said, go ahead. You need to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad, right?
That's the thing. I get it, but it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's sad what we do to ourselves because we're so afraid of being judged.
Yeah.
When can you remember being stuck in that place of what are they going to say, or fear of judgment, or anything else that I just ranted about?
Earlier today. It just doesn't debilitate me like it used to. So
yeah. So when was it debilitating?
Yeah. I mean,
yesterday.
Right. No, it wasn't debilitating yesterday. I feel it still, you know, Sean. I just act with it. And I spent the majority of my life like in that space of really trying to make sure that, I mean, approval was survival for me for a long time. And I felt safe, and I felt like loved and okay, right? If I knew that somebody approved of me. So most of my life, it was completely debilitating. And when it got into creating content early on in my business, I mean, I would spend so much time, I mean, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours trying to make sure that I looked perfect, that I sounded perfect, that my lighting was perfect, that my dogs never barked, so my ambiance was perfect, that the words that I said were perfect, that I sounded intelligent, whatever that means, and that the way my ideas flowed was perfect. And I created so little because I was trying to get it to this place that wasn't actually possible to ever get it to, and just trying to sort through all of my own filters of abuse and judgment and ridicule, right? Because that's the thing that I was really scared of hearing, was that somebody else out there would think about my stuff, what I actually thought about my stuff while it was just floating in my head, to what you said earlier. And so I'm kind of filtering through all of that. And is that going to make them mad? And is that going to make them upset? And is somebody going to judge me or think ill of me? Or what if that offends this person over here? And in that time, I just wasn't doing, like, I wasn't actually putting anything out there at all. And I mean, that was to some degree impacting me, I'd say probably until last year at some point, like not 2020, 2019, like where right. I was really in that space of just, you know, your words, man, perfecting the irrelevant.
Yeah. And it does come down to approval, as you said.
Sure.
We're so afraid of not being approved of. Mm-hmm. And when the internal conversation is that we don't approve of ourselves, then we're afraid of the external judgment to match the internal judgment. Yeah. And one of the things that is so important for us to understand, those of us that have a message that we want to use to help other people, not only will we usually get judged in a negative way by other people that are not who our message is designed for,
right.
there are muscles that you have to develop that can only be developed through, I'm going to keep using the label that we would generally coach people out of, but through negative judgment. Mm-hmm. There are certain muscles that are required for you to win that cannot be developed without negative judgment. So while we're sitting in this self-abuse room and trying to perfect the message and using the same filters that are already abusing ourselves to hopefully judge our content as perfect, like I don't think that judgment can even live in the self-abuse room. You're never going to be in that room and go, oh yeah, finally we have something perfect, because we're using the filters and the judgments that are already bent toward imperfect. It sucks. You suck. You're a loser. It'll never work. Nobody will ever like this. That's what's echoing around all of the walls of the internal, just like cave of these self judgments, right? And so while all of those are echoing around the walls, how are you going to catch the judgment that says, okay, now we're ready? Because everything that we're looking through is, we're not ready. It's dangerous out there. We're not good enough. They're going to finally see that we're not good enough. They're going to not like us anymore. They're going to abandon us. They will dismiss us. They won't buy our stuff. They won't like our thing. They won't subscribe to our channel. Please subscribe to our channel, by the way, because our channel is full of deep dive conversations like this. And it's impossible for that recipe to produce the judgment of, okay, now we're ready. Mm-hmm. And if it does, it's actually worse. Because I can guarantee you, if in that space of just negative personal judgment, if you find the thing that lens that you're looking through approves of, okay, finally, this is ready, I can tell you that thing will be useless. If you want that thing to really change people's lives, if you want that message to really touch people's hearts, your self-punishment filter is not going to approve of something that other people could actually consume and change their lives with, because what will make it through the filters of the self-abuse is only something safe and only something that really won't induce other people's judgment. And the only way to make sure that you don't trigger other people's judgment is to say nothing of value. Yep. That's really the only way. Say something that nobody can actually look at from a different perspective. That's the only way, which means the only thing that you're going to get approved of in the self-abuse room is something safe, something shallow, something meaningless.
Something not you.
And something not you. Exactly. Because the thing that is you is the one that's getting judged as so negative. And this fear of, I'm not ready, it's not ready, and until we get ready, we can't go out there. It's doing it right now all over the place. Like, that's the thought right now that has people not publishing articles, that has people typing but not actually hitting post on social media. Right now, it has people not filming videos or filming videos, but not putting it on their website, not putting it on YouTube, not publishing the thing. Right now, that thought is stifling so many people's real message, but it's keeping the message that other people need from getting to them. And so if we really boil this down to the simple variables, what it's going to come down to is whether you are more committed to self-preservation or making a difference in people's lives. And you're not going to be able to do both. You're not going to be able to stay safe and make sure nobody ever judges you while saying anything of value, anything of consequence, anything of transformation, right? Transformation requires disruption. So if you want to help people change their life in any meaningful way, there will be people that don't like what you say. Celebrate that, because that's the opportunity to build muscles that are required to build. And this whole idea of needing approval before we put it out there is also impossible, because how are you going to approve of something that's not created? And I want everyone to understand that thoughts are not creations. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as a creation in our minds. We say some version of, I've got a book in my head. No, you don't. There is no book in your head. There's information that needs to be transferred outside of your head. You have no creations inside of your head. You have to get information out in order to create. And there's something so beautiful, so powerful, so sacred about the creation, the translation of information from internal to external. That, number one, is the only way anybody else is going to read it, obviously, but it's the only way you can approve of a creation. Even if you need approval, the only way approval can live is if something is created first. And so what we see all the time is that people are demanding that they get perfect before they do the activities that are required to even get good. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, you've got to do certain things to get good, but people don't want to do the things to get good until they're perfect, which is way beyond good. And so that's why we stay trapped in this catch-22 of, I got to do something, but in order for me to have the permission to do the thing, I need to already have the skills that are not possible until I do a lot of stuff. And a thought that came to me the other day is, you have to be willing to produce some truly awful stuff in order to get to stuff that's less awful. And then in order to create some stuff that's actually decent, and then to create some stuff that's not terrible, and then to create some stuff that's might actually be okay, and then to create some stuff that's good, and then to create some stuff that's really good, and then to create some stuff that's transformational, and then to create some stuff that's great. There are so many phases of creation. And we think, because we just want to take the escalator all the way up to the top of Mount Everest, we think that we got to get to the great stuff first. And I get it. We don't want to look at something and go, oh, wow, this is really awful. And we certainly don't want other people to think that it's really awful. And we don't want other people to tell us that it's awful by not liking our posts or subscribing to our channel or liking our videos or commenting. That's the way we think that people are telling us that it's awful. If they don't engage, it's awful. So there are so many ways that producing content and publishing content is threatening to our self-esteem. It's threatening to our self-preservation. But there's a required journey in this process. And if you're not willing to go through the required journey, then you don't get what's on the other side. And in this case, getting is not actually receiving personally. It's not getting clients and getting money. It's, you don't get to receive the feeling, the fulfillment of changing somebody else's world. And there's a thought that every single one of you who are listening to this right now, watching this on video, listening to the audio, whatever, there's a thought, at least one thought that's in your head that you're afraid of saying. You're afraid of teaching. It's probably the most sacred thing, and it's probably the one that you're most afraid of getting outside of your head. That thought is what will change somebody's life. For some of you, it's what will save somebody's life. And I don't mean metaphorically, I mean literally for some of you. There's a thought inside your head that somebody else out there is frantically looking for. They might be searching on the internet right now for that thing that's in your thought or that's in your head. And how disrespectful is it to have somebody out there chasing down a thought that's in your head and you keep it hidden? I think for a lot of us, we need to go to that thought. We need to really check in with how disrespectful is it for us to keep somebody else's information from them. And I believe the lessons that we've learned in our life are not ours to keep. They're ours to teach. They're ours to learn so that we can share them with somebody else. And the only reason that we would be afraid of sharing the lessons of our lives with somebody else who can benefit from them is if our ego convinces us that it's too dangerous to do that, meaning that somebody's judgment of us is worse than what we would feel or the value for the other person of us sharing our information and having it change their life. In other words, our self-preservation is actually more important to us than somebody else's transformation. I know I've had to have that conversation with myself many, many times.
Sure. It's a powerful self-check. I was thinking that at the very beginning of the video, when you were talking about out there, right? To me, that's like in the elements, right? Like out there, like in the wild, out there in the unknown, out there in this, I don't know what to expect in all of that space. And I wouldn't just, voluntarily like run out there into the unknown. But when I think about like who's there, I'll go. Right? I know you've used an analogy in the past of like a burning building, right? And I wouldn't just run into a building that's on fire, just, for my jollies. But if I knew, because in that moment I'm focused on self-preservation, why on earth would I risk my life to go into a burning building? But if someone else that I loved was in there, I'm going, you would not be able, a team of firemen would not be able to hold me back because there's someone in there that needs me. And so that's the mindset switch that really started to change things for me actually a couple of years ago, like that really, really started to like, wait a minute. And it wasn't an overnight. It just began to kind of like, I think about it, in the movies where somebody gets like slapped across the face, like wake up, snap out of it. That really snapped me out of my own, like get out of your head, Michelle. This isn't about you. Like you're so worried about how you look or how you sound or all that other stuff. And there's somebody out there that needs you right now. And you're like, well, wait a minute, I got to put my lipstick on. Like STFU, man. Like that's just like, and that's the thing for me that really snapped me out was when I got really, really, really clear, not on what's out there, because I have no idea, man. I still don't know what's out there, what's on the other side, when I jump off this ledge I'm standing on now, what's out there, I don't know. But I know who's jumping and I know that there's somebody out there, somebody who needs me, and I'll go for her. So when I got clear on who that was, when I got clear in our language on my seeker, on who needed me and the pain that she was in and the flames that were engulfing her, I ran into the building all day, every day. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's a really powerful analogy, and fire itself is a great analogy for our fear because we're afraid of getting burned. We're afraid of being abandoned. We're afraid of being dismissed. We're afraid of being yelled at. We're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of that external validation not coming.
Right.
And the asbestos suit, the best asbestos suit that we can wear into the fire is internal validation. It's internal validation around ourselves as a valuable messenger, or ourselves as a valuable teacher, or our lessons as valuable lessons. If we recognize the value, then it's easier to walk into that fire, because what we'll learn, especially, metaphorically in this world of getting our message out there, what we'll learn is that even if the fire comes, it's not that bad. It might hurt a little bit. It'll sting for sure. None of us likes to be disliked. Well, I can't say none of us, but most people, that are not sociopaths, don't enjoy being disliked. Right. So it's not about us getting to the point where we enjoy other people not liking us. And it's not about getting to the point where we don't care, right? One of the rally cries out there is IDGAF, right? I don't give a blank, or 0 blanks given. Mm-hmm. And I get it. I understand the idea. But for most people, that's not ever going to happen, because you will always care.
Yes.
For most people, you're going to care. You're going to care because you're a teacher. You're not just trying to get money. If you were just trying to get money, then it's easier to not care about other people's emotions, because your biggest goal is getting the money. But if you really truly want to teach other people, you're going to care. So it's not about getting to the point where you don't give a crap. It's about getting clarity that you care about something else more.
That.
So you still will not enjoy negative judgment. But what you care about more is changing someone's life. You care about hearing somebody else say things like I know you had people say to you yesterday, because you were texting them to me, like the things that you really, truly give a damn about. Yeah. That's what your soul is more committed to. Right. But if we don't have that thing, then it's just easy for us to go, yeah, but that fire is really hot. Yeah. Man, I mean, it looks really hot. I've heard about how hot it is, and it can easily convince us to sit down. It's not worth being burned by the fire. But one of the tragedies in all of this is that fire quite often is just this thin veil that we've made up in our mind. And with literal fire, you could hold a candle or some, kind of lighter or something like that with an actual flame, and you can move your hand right through it. You can move your finger right through it. You can actually do it somewhat slow and not get burned by the fire, because the fire is not real big. And so what most of us are doing is seeing anything that potentially looks like a fire and envisioning that it's like this 100-acre forest fire. Mm-hmm. And if we enter into the fire, we're going to get burned alive inside the fire. And quite often what it is, it's just a facade. Mm-hmm. And if we ran into the fire because somebody is on the other side of the fire, like you explained, we won't even feel the fire, because it's made up anyway. It's made up in our minds. We're being told that it's dangerous to go out there. That's where all of the elements are that might gulp us, swallow us whole and destroy us. And literally the way our fear works, like we think we're going to die out there because we don't know what to be prepared for. But I love what you put that up against. There's someone out there. There's a body out there. There's a person out there. And if I don't know what's out there anyway, but I do know who's out there, right, then I'm going to go. And what's required for us to start to shift this pattern of, I'll say, self-destruction, this pattern of self-sabotage, is for us to prove to ourselves that someone out there is listening, that someone out there does care. And I think it's really critical. I think you and I are sort of unconsciously using singular, seeker, someone, somebody. And even if it's unconscious, it's intentional, because a single person is who's going to watch your videos. A single person is who's going to read your blog articles. A single person is what's going to consume your content. We get caught up in the bigness of all the numbers, right? Every time I put out a video, we want thousands of people to immediately watch the video, right? Because then YouTube's algorithms will kick in and it'll go everywhere. And, you know, that's what my ego wants. And that's what our sexy desires really want, right?
Mhm.
But what I've learned is that the content that gets picked up by the masses like that is quite often the viral content that actually only appeals to a certain element of the brain. It's not consumable content. It's just shareable content.
Mm.
And I don't think I've ever made that distinction. It's the consumable content that actually really shifts people. The shareable content is exciting, and a lot of times it's shallow. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't share consumable content. A lot of people do share consumable content, but it just doesn't appeal to the element in our brain that's like, oh, everybody's got to hear this, right? Or just share that right away. Because a lot of times that kind of content actually doesn't get inside the human. It just inspires the human to share, right? And that's what all the algorithms on social media platforms are based upon. It's how many eyeballs can I get on this content. It's not how many people's lives will be changed by this content. So we've got this quality quantity perpetual challenge when we're sharing our message, when we're sharing our content. And the reason I'm saying that is if you imagine that every single video of yours, every single article of yours, every single thing that you put out, there's a single human on the other side of that that is potentially consuming it. What could that single human do with your content? That, in my experience, I know your experience, and in so many people in our community, and that we've talked about this topic too, that idea that there's a single human over there that might consume this and do something to actually change their life, that's what gets us to create, and that's what gets us to put our stuff out there. It's for the single human.
That's right.
Not the masses.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to get our minds away from the big numbers because we're going to set ourselves up to fail pretty much all the time.
Yep.
And then even if there are individual humans that are consuming your content and changing their lives with it, if you didn't get 1,000 views right away, if you didn't get 50 comments right away, I was talking to somebody recently who said every video I put out, not me personally, but this other person, they said every video I put out, I want 100 likes. If I don't think my video is going to get 100 likes, then I don't want to put it out. And so every time they would put out a video, they would be just like feverishly refreshing the page, seeing if it's going to get 100 likes. And the content that does get 100 likes is kind of like the pre-approved stuff that we were talking about earlier. That's really not all that meaningful. And then we had a coaching session, and what this person realized is the content that her soul needs her to say is probably not going to get those 100 likes.
That's right.
And so the only thing that they had permission to share was the stuff that their soul doesn't care about anyway. And it was that shift. And part of the reason that the soul needs to speak is these individual people that are going to consume it, right? So what if I put this video out and I don't get 100 likes, but I change 2 lives? Is that worth it? Of course it is. And then what happens is as we give ourselves permission to create and we put stuff out there, and we pay more attention to the people who are consuming it instead of the people who are judging it, that's when these muscles get built. That's when we start to develop stuff, build the community, and then start this cycle where our content is starting to evolve with oxygen. It's starting to evolve with feedback. And so what we see happen all the time is that people are waiting to get good before they publish. And then it's just like, all right, we're just gonna wait here, right? Like the thing that you're wanting, whatever that thing is, whether it's a tangible thing or an intangible thing, like I really want to help somebody change their life. That thing that you're really wanting is probably 100 pieces of content created in front of you.
Yeah.
If it's 100 pieces of content in front of you, the first one is irrelevant.
That's right.
The second one is irrelevant. It's, I think what you said earlier, you at least alluded to it, is how long are we going to perfect the irrelevant?
Yeah.
And if we come back 5 years from now and you've gotten really good at the lighting, and you've gotten really good at the makeup and the hair and the creation and all the words, you've gotten really good at all that stuff 5 years from now, and that's when you make your first piece of content, here's what I'll tell you. You still have 99 to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. That's cute. And those 5 years were irrelevant, because what I'm telling you is that somebody needs you to make that 100th piece, and they need you to stop screwing around with piece number 1. You won't even get to them with piece number 1. You probably won't get to them with piece number 2. And if you're committed to creating 100 pieces of content, that's what I would love people to respond to in this video. If you're still watching this video, if this is inspiring you or lighting you up in any way, I want you to comment on this video. Are you committed to creating that 100th piece of content, which you cannot get to by leapfrogging?
Right.
You can only get to through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 99. And then that 100th piece of content. If you're committed to creating 100 pieces of content, no matter what, and it's the creation and the publishing of the 100th piece that's going to change the lives, or it's going to give you what you really want in your business, that's when you're going to make $100,000 or whatever goals you have. It's going to come after the 100th piece, not a moment before, and you won't get paid at all between now and then. But if everything you wanted was at the other side, on the other side of that 100th piece of content, number one, would you commit to it? And number two, how long would it take for you to make 100 pieces of content? What I've learned is what really matters is not that you create 100 pieces of content. What really matters is that you'd be willing to, if that's what it takes. What really matters is that you're in it for the long haul, and you're committed to being the version of yourself that only 100 pieces of content can create. Only 100 pieces of content can develop the version of yourself that will be ready at that moment in time for the person that needs you the most, for the opportunity that needs you the most. We tend to think that we're going to have these opportunities show up and scoop us up and take us where we want to go. No, the opportunities are waiting for us out there, but they certainly won't move toward us. If anything, the longer we wait, the further they're going to continue moving away from us, just by the nature of movement in the universe, right? So if we are committed to becoming the version of us that will command those opportunities, and the version of us that our biggest opportunity that we can't even comprehend right now, if we tried, if we're committed to becoming that version, so the opportunity that's waiting for us will be ready, and we will be ready, then get moving. Get moving. Every moment in hesitation is wasted, especially when the hesitation is around things that truly won't matter. And what I've also learned, Michelle, is that when we create something because we know it's just a step towards something much, much bigger. It's better. It's actually better. The quality of the thing that we create is actually better.
Yep.
When we recognize it's irrelevant to the bigger mission that we have. But if we think our very next step is the whole game, it's the win or the loss, it's what's going to make or break us as a person or our business, it's going to suck. Because we got so much pressure on it.
That's the word.
And pressure is the worst variable for creativity. So remove the pressure over the perfection that this next thing has to have, and the next thing is going to be so much better. And if you're willing to create 100 pieces of content and get it out there so that the person who's looking for it will find it somewhere, chances are you won't need to create 100. It's like, I tend to think that it's this entity in the universe, call it whatever label you want to call it, but like this entity in the universe is saying, I've got so much opportunity waiting for you. Let's see what you're actually committed to. Oh, you're committed as long as you make money? No. You're not ready for this. You don't get it yet. Oh, you're committed as long as it's easy? Nah. Oh, you're totally committed as long as it's fast, as long as you can have it before January 31st? No. It needs to see that you're committed unconditionally, no matter what. And then it comes and finds you. And not only does it come and find you, when it does come and find you, I can virtually guarantee you would have never been able to think that up. You would have never been able to realize the opportunities that are waiting for you while you're standing on square zero, waiting to get perfect to take a jump to square one. It's mind-blowing what happens when we get into unconditional commitment around our creativity in the name of service of other people. Then what we end up getting in the form of money, what we end up getting in the form of opportunities is staggering. Staggering.
Good. It's interesting to me that we're afraid to go out there, and yet in here is all the judgment and all of the self-abuse and all of the pressure and all of the demands and all of the high expectations and all of the fire, right? We're in the fire being like, I don't want to go out there in the fire. It's like,
wow.
You're already getting burned, babe. We're just go. I mean, really, it's never been worse for me out there than it ever was in here. Not one time. Not once.
Yeah, that thought. We're so afraid of getting burned by the made up fire out there that we don't even recognize that we're getting scorched by the real fire in here. So what was the time when you realized it was worth it?
I mean, whenever it was, however many years ago, when I just recognized that there was somebody who was hurting. So, I mean, in that moment, things just really started to shift for me, and it became worth it for me to go. It was never about any success or result or tangible thing that's happened. It just was like, I mean, this person needs me, and they need me as I am right now. They need me imperfect as I am. They need me real as I am. They need me while I'm traveling. I don't, that to me, that's the thing. That's when it became worth it, that there was somebody think you texted me, we were on like a Zoom call or something. You said somebody's standing in their bathroom about to take pills, it's like, end their life. They need you. Like, oh, let me stop with this craziness. That's when it was worth it. And it wasn't even about it. It just, all the focus, it left me. Like it came, and I'm not saying it forever, because there's moments where I'm like, oh, how's this going to land? Is somebody going to like it? And I just catch myself, more quickly. It didn't vanish for good, but it just was this reality in that moment of just, it's not about me. Everything that I've gone through, I mean, this is a realization I had this year, that everything that I've gone through, every experience, every trigger, every trauma, every realization, every breakthrough that I've had, they're not even for me. They're for these other people who need me. And that's what makes it worth it. And then honestly, there are more people than I can count who've sent me messages. Like I got a couple of days ago, right? Yesterday, maybe it was, of just, I feel more stable than I ever have. I'm not waking up and drinking in the morning anymore. I don't think about killing myself anymore. Somebody told me that abandonment would never be a thing that I could ever get over. And I don't struggle with that anymore. And those messages, I mean, truly, and I know you've heard thousands and thousands and thousands of them, which is great. I mean, it really is. There's people who need this message in this way. I mean, it was easy for me, right, to be like, oh, well, somebody else is talking about it. Somebody else has something, better to say. They're different than me. They're more polished than me. They certainly are more perfect or more pretty or more whatever than I am. But there are people who need my voice, who need to hear the message coming out of my mouth, and they're worth it. So yeah, as soon as I realized that, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me.
Yeah, that's everything. Because when it is about us, when it's about making money, when it's about proving to ourselves that we can be successful by building a business or by selling a program or by doing a 6-figure launch or whatever it is, that's just ego fuel. Mm-hmm. And the ego fuel is very rarely enough to get over the emotional obstacles, to get over the fears. We hop ourselves up on this ego and hype and shallow motivation, thinking that we're going to, bust through whatever that fire is. And it's just such short term. Mm-hmm. And it's the ego that created the fire in the first place. So it's like we're asking the same thing that built all the obstacles to get us over them.
Never going to happen.
Right. And if it does, it'll just be short term. And the made up obstacles of our ego is just going to follow us around. The story that is in my mind right now of when it really landed that it's worth it, many years ago, I think it was the first or second year in business, I was doing a seminar up in Canada and there weren't very many people there. And my ego wanted to cancel the event. I didn't know if I was going to make any money on the event. I was probably going to lose money because of all the expenses to fly up and stay and all of that. And we were sitting around and talking. It was a multiple day event. I don't remember what night it was, but we were just talking around the table. And somebody started talking about their depression. And they said that they were thinking about suicide. And for whatever reason, I had this intuitive nudge to ask them when they were going to kill themselves, which is, I don't know that I've ever asked anybody that. But for whatever reason, I asked and they said tonight. And I can still remember how quiet the room got, because this person had it planned out, they knew where they were going to do it. They knew how they were going to do it. And something led them to my event. And it was like one of those weird things, you know, like it didn't even make a whole lot of sense as to why they came, and they did. And the gravity of that moment, you know, immediately was kind of one of those slaps in the face, like you were saying earlier, of it's not about losing the money, you know, it's not about the potential expenses. It's not about that. That doesn't mean that, you know, we should just be careless and just throw money everywhere. But what is it really truly about? And there was a big shift for me in that moment as well, because this person essentially said that because they went to this event, they weren't going to kill themselves. And I had been wanting somebody to say that for a long time, because I wanted to be one of those people. Because I've heard people say that about Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield and Lisa Nichols and, you know, all kinds of other motivational speakers and inspiring people. And I just thought, man, that would be really cool, because I wanted somebody to put my name in there. Right. And what was really powerful about that moment was when I heard those words, I didn't take it as a personal win. I didn't, like a year prior, had I heard those words, I probably would have asked that person to write it down as a testimonial. And, you know, you forgot my name. Can you put my name in there, please? So everybody knows that it's because Sean Smith that, you know, you had this big breakthrough. And I recognized that I truly didn't care from a personal ego standpoint, right, that I was the one. All I cared about in that moment is that person's son will have a parent tomorrow. And the joy that I had and the tears that I shed there was probably the first time that I can remember, at least now, that I felt the emotion of service, the emotion of somebody else's life being changed, and just celebrating that win, their win, without my ego trying to claim it.
Right.
You know, trying to put any of my responsibility onto it.
Sure.
And most of us are so driven by service, so much more driven by service than personal gain. It's just shocking. And most of us that are teachers, and most of us that, you know, don't really resonate with creating huge sales funnels and boiler rooms and just hardcore pressure selling on people, the fuel that we have to just simply help. It's extremely simple. Just help. That kind of fuel is so much deeper and so much more powerful and much more long lasting than the fuel to get, or the fuel to avoid. The fuel to avoid judgment, the fuel to avoid the fire, the fuel to avoid abandonment, the fuel to avoid disapproval.
Or not being able to help people. The fuel of not being able to deliver that. Right? That's a big thing that I hear from coaches. What if I actually can't help them? Which I think is coming from that place, because what you said, right? That we do care, we do want to help so much. And because we're so afraid of that, we don't even try.
Yeah. Because we're so afraid of that, we don't even try, whatever that is. And ultimately, what I believe to be true, what I've experienced in my life, and what so many people that I've talked to agree with is ultimately when we look back on our lives, all we're really going to care about is, did we try? Not did we do, did we achieve, did we succeed, did we try? And so if we could find our fuel and our permission to create, to get ourselves out there, to share the message that we've learned along the journey of our life that's not ours to keep, if we could find the permission in sharing that just simply by the concept of helping and trying, then we'll get more stuff out there. And as we get more stuff out there, we're going to get better. As we do it over and over again, we're going to build muscles. We're going to build habits. We're going to become much more consistent. And ultimately, that's all you give a damn about anyway. Now, if you like this video, check out that video where I break down how to overcome one of the biggest obstacles that so many coaches deal with, which is the imposter syndrome. Put your left hand over this thing, raise your right hand and say, I, your name, will never again call myself an imposter. Oh, this probably calls for the gavel. Never again will you be deemed an imposter.